Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. My wife brushed past me with the baby like I was furniture. My name is Jake and I am 33 and I live here. Somehow I am the only thing in this house she does not see. That was the first moment I realized she was ghosting me. She moved past the couch and I reached out on instinct. My fingers barely grazed her arm before she jerked away like I burned. No word and no glance, just a sharp pull and her back turned. I laughed under my breath like it was a joke that did not land. Inside I already knew this was not a joke at all. The baby started wailing from the bedroom and she sprinted up the stairs. I stayed where I was, one hand still hanging in the air. It felt stupid to freeze like that, but my body just locked. Ever had a fight where the other person refuses to fight back? That is what this was, except the battleground was my living room. Upstairs the crying rose and fell, little gasps dragging out the pauses. I could picture her pacing that room with him pressed to her chest. My feet did not move because walking up there meant something I was not ready to admit. So I sat back down with the remote and stared through the screen. Noise filled the room, but the silence between us felt louder. I know how that sounds, a grown man sulking on a couch. Trust me, I am not proud writing this right now. At the time though, I kept telling myself she just needed space. Space from what was the part I refused to say out loud. Because if I named it, I would have to own it too. She came back down eventually, with the baby knocked out against her shoulder. I muted the TV and tried again because I am not completely dense. Hey, do you want me to make something for you? She stepped into the kitchen and opened the fridge like I had not spoken. I sat there listening to containers clink while my question just floated there. I followed her in because letting it slide again felt like surrender. Can we talk for a second? Just, can you look at me? The baby twitched and she adjusted his head without turning around. What do you want from me right now? Her voice sounded flat, like my name had been erased from her mouth. I opened my mouth then shut it and instantly felt 12 years old. I wanted to argue that I had done nothing wrong that day. The problem was that today did not exist on its own anymore. Every minute with her carried that other night like a heavy bag. And she was making damn sure I felt the weight of it. Look, I just wanted to check if you ate anything. I can order something or cook or whatever you need tonight. She finally faced me, and for a second I thought we were back. I already ate with him earlier, you do not have to worry. The way she stressed you told me I was not part of that sentence. That tiny emphasis hit harder than any screaming match we ever had. I felt my jaw clench and my hands curl into fists. There was a version of me that wanted to explode right there. Instead, I leaned on the counter and tried to sound calm and rational. I hate that version because he kept trying to bargain with a closed door. She walked out of the kitchen without another word and headed for the hallway. I followed a few steps behind like some extra in my own life. At the end of the hall, she turned into the small room we never used before. Now that room held a crib, a rocking chair, and her side of the bed. My side waited down the hall, untouched and getting colder every night. I stopped at the doorway and leaned against the frame to watch them. She laid him gently in the crib and tucked the blanket around his legs. Her hands moved with this automatic care that used to be reserved for us. I cleared my throat without thinking, just a small sound to prove I existed. She did not turn, only rested her fingers on the rail like I was air. I backed away before I could say something ugly and ruin it further. In our bedroom, the bed looked huge even with the same sheets and pillows. Her pillow was untouched, the blanket on her side still folded over neatly. It hit me then that she had not slept in here for 3 nights. You do not notice a missing person right away when they are still on the lease. I lay down on my side of the bed and grabbed my phone. For a second, I actually thought about texting her from the next room. That is how far apart it felt, like she had moved states, not walls. My thumbs hovered over the screen while I tried to think of something simple. Nothing sounded right that did not also sound like a confession I was not ready for. Instead, I opened an app and started scrolling like every other coward at midnight. Her profile popped up first because the algorithm knows what hurts you most. There she was smiling with him in her arms, captioned with some line about miracles. No mention of me, no hint that the man taking the picture lived there too. I double-tapped the photo anyway like a stranger trying to be supportive. Footsteps came down the hall and I killed the SCR. Enan shut my eyes. She paused at the doorway long enough that I felt the weight of her stare. Jake, are you awake right now? I kept my breathing slow because I was a coward who did not want another round. The floorboard creaked once as she turned away and chose the other room again. Lying there, I realized that every time she gave me a tiny opening, I backed off. I told myself I was avoiding a blow-up for her sake and his. In reality, I was avoiding one single sentence that would change everything. I am not your kid's father, and I am not going to pretend. I never said it out loud that night, but she heard it anyway. People talk about ghosting like it is blocking someone on a phone. Try being ghosted by the woman brushing her teeth next to your sink. She left my number in her contacts and erased me from every important sentence instead. By the time I finally admitted what I had done, it felt almost too late. But that part belongs to the night she asked me to take the bottle. Her hand clamped on my arm before I heard the crying. I jerked awake and then went limp again on purpose. If I stayed loose enough, maybe she would think I was out. You ever pretend to sleep while your heart sprints? That was me buying courage with a fake snore. Jake. My name landed next to my ear like a warning. The baby wailed down the hall, sharp and nonstop. Jake, please, I need you to get up. Every please from her that night felt like a shoved door. I rolled onto my stomach and dragged the blanket higher. My brain screamed that I was a coward and I still stayed down. I work tomorrow was the first excuse that crawled out. You can handle it, you always handle nights. I hated how casual I sounded with that line. She let out this short laugh that was not funny at all. Must be nice having a full night and a full conscience. The baby hit a higher pitch and then gulped air. I could picture his tiny body straining with every breath. I refused to move because movement meant agreement. Can you take this one feed, just this one? Her voice shook on one word and steadied on the next. The bottle is ready, you just have to walk in there. My chest tightened because it sounded so simple. Simple for someone who had already decided that kid was his. I pushed the blanket down and sat up halfway. She stood near the doorway with him pressed against her. Her hair stuck to her face, her eyes looked worn out. She bounced him in these short, impatient motions that hurt to watch. He screamed like the world was ending while we argued about shifts. You know, I did the last 3 nights alone. I heard her, but I latched onto the one word alone. It hit like an accusation, and I grabbed my defense. I have been working late, and you know that. I threw work at her like a shield and watched it bounce. She stepped closer and lowered her voice as if volume mattered. I'm exhausted and I am scared all the time. I need you to take him so I can breathe. Just go in there and hold the bottle for 10 minutes. 10 minutes sounded like a contract I could never cancel. Something ugly crawled up my throat before I could stop it. Why are you acting like I signed up for this? The moment I heard myself, I knew that was a loaded match. She went still from head to toe like her body braced. You did, you promised, you looked me in the eye. That part is hard to write because she was not wrong. Back then I tossed around yes like it cost nothing. Lying there, I pretended her words were an exaggeration. I told myself she was twisting things, but I knew better. Knowing and admitting are not the same battlefield. The baby choked on a cry and then shrieked again. His little hands flailed near her shoulder and grabbed her shirt. She shifted him higher and did not take her gaze off me. Are you going to help or are you just watching? There is no safe answer when every option feels like surrender. I swung my legs off the bed and stared at the floor. My feet did not touch it, I froze halfway. My head kept running in circles around one thought. If I get up now, this becomes real forever. It felt dramatic then, it feels small and petty now. I am not his father. It came out low and clear before I could soften it. The sound of my own voice made my stomach drop. Her mouth opened, then closed, then tightened into something hard. The baby kept crying while the room went strangely quiet. Say that again. She adjusted her grip on him like he weighed nothing. There was no tremor in her tone now, just ice. You are not what exactly, finish the sentence completely. Every part of me told me to walk it back. I doubled down instead because that is what pride does. He is not mine, this whole thing is not mine. I will support you, I will not play dad. Each word landed between us like a step backward off a ledge. I watched myself fall and still argued on the way down. Her eyes filled and cleared without a single tear dropping. Okay, you know what message are. Received loud and clear. She shifted her weight and turned toward the hallway. Do not worry about bottles, do not worry about anything. You can go back to sleep and keep your conscience tidy. Hearing that last word made my skin crawl and I still stayed seated. I wanted to yell that she was twisting it, missing my point. My point was horrible, but I clung to it anyway. I told myself I was just being honest about biology. Honesty can sound a lot like cruelty when you pick your timing. She left the room with quick heavy steps and the baby. His crying grew louder for a second as she passed the doorway. Then it faded down the hall and into the nursery. The house settled around me like nothing had happened at all. Inside my chest, everything rattled like someone kicked the frame. I lay back down and stared at the ceiling with dry eyes. I thought, fine, she will calm down and we will talk later. Later has this way of stretching until it becomes never again. The monitor on my nightstand carried every sob from that room. I flipped it face down and smothered the sound under my pillow. Looking back, that was the worst part, not the words. The worst part was hearing him cry and deciding that silence helped me. I chose silence over both of them and called it space. People online ask when the distance really started in our marriage. For me, it started right there under that pillow. Coffee splashed onto the first page before I saw the seal. I jerked the mug back and dabbed at the corner with my sleeve. Under the faint stain, my last name stared up from a bold line. For a second, I honestly thought I was looking at someone else's life. There was a whole stack spread out across the table in neat rows. Not bills, not ads, everything printed with boxes and lines and stamps. Guardianship petition, temporary placement agreement, emergency contact update. Every document had my surname typed in like the decision was ancient history. I remember my throat going dry while I flipped through them too fast. On one page, my name appeared next to the word father. Not step, not friend, just father in solid letters. My stomach twisted so hard I had to pull the chair closer. I know this sounds dramatic, but I actually checked for a forged signature. The line for my autograph was empty, waiting, right under that label. Footsteps came from the hallway and I almost shoved everything to the floor. Instead, I froze with my hand hovering over the page like I was stealing. She walked in wearing the same sweatpants from the night before. Her eyes landed on the spread and then on me without a word. Something in that look told me this scene was already playing in her head. What are you doing? She reached past me for the mug and nudged it away from the forms. I held up the top page like an accusation my fingers trembled with. Why is my name on all of this? When did this happen? I sounded more panicked than angry, and that embarrassed me instantly. She pulled out a chair and sat down across from me very slowly. That stack is from the lawyer, we have the meeting this afternoon. I blinked a few times because my brain lagged behind those words. Lawyer for what exactly? Because I have not agreed to anything. My voice climbed on that last word, and I hated how desperate it felt. You agreed when we told them yes at the hospital. Her palms pressed flat on the table, fingers spread wide near the paperwork. They needed an answer that day, and we gave one, both of us. I opened my mouth to deny it, and memory punched straight through my denial. I had nodded back then, treated it like some distant possibility, not this. Back then I thought it was about helping for a short time. Drop off diapers, hold the baby during visiting hours, something like that. I never pictured our kitchen turning into a legal desk with my name everywhere. So I clung to the only thing I had left, the technicality. I never signed, I never put ink on anything that matters. She leaned back like the chair might break under the weight of this conversation. Your word mattered when she was dying, that is when it mattered. That word is what kept him out of foster care last week. Nobody forced us, we stepped up because we loved her and we love him. Hearing "we" in that sentence made my chest feel tight and lopsided. I picked up one sheet and read the top line out loud. Petition for permanent guardianship in the best interest of the minor. My tongue stumbled over permanent and I laughed once because it tasted wrong. Why does this say permanent? That is not what we talked about. I gripped the page so hard it crumpled a little near the edge. She reached out and smoothed that crease with her thumb without looking at me. The social worker visited while you were at the office 2 days ago. They reviewed everything. They said we are the logical placement long term. He has no one else who actually knew him before he was born. She finally lifted her eyes and they were steady in a way that scared me. Logical placement. That phrase rattled in my head like I was some empty space to fill. I pushed the stack away and it slid close to her side again. So some stranger met you for an hour and decided my life for me. It came out sharp and petty, and I knew it even while saying it. She almost smiled at that, but it was the exhausted kind, not the warm kind. You are acting like this is happening to you in a vacuum. She tapped the top form near the child's name, and I heard her breath hitch. Her best friend is gone. He lost his mother before he met her properly. We are the only people she trusted. She made that very clear. I stared at that small printed name and felt nothing I wanted to admit. I wish I could say my first instinct was compassion. It was not. What I felt was cornered, like every exit had been quietly sealed overnight. When did she make it clear? Because I do not remember any big declaration. I went for sarcasm because real fear would have cracked my voice. She blinked slowly, like she was replaying footage only she could see. Last time I visited her in the hospital, she grabbed my wrist and begged. Please do not let him go anywhere else. Make sure he stays with you. You were there, you nodded, you squeezed my shoulder and said absolutely. She mimicked my old confidence, and I wanted to punch that version of myself. I honestly did not realize that moment came with legal fine print attached. Back then I thought I was just promising emotional support, not signing up forever. Yeah, I know how selfish that sounds written down like this. At the table though I called it confusion, not selfishness, because that soothed my ego. I pointed at the blank signature line like it was my last defense. Look, my name printed here does not equal consent. That is not how it works. They cannot force me into this role just because someone typed it. She laughed once under her breath, no humor, just disbelief and fatigue. You think this is about the font or the pen stroke or what? Her voice cracked on what in that almost broke through my stubborn wall. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed near the edge of the table. She glanced at the number and answered with a quick stiff greeting. Yes, we have everything laid out. He is looking through them now. I knew right away it was the social worker, and my stomach dropped. She put the call on speaker and set the phone between us like a referee. Good morning, I just wanted to confirm you both received the packet. The woman's tone was bright and practiced and completely sure of us. These forms will finalize placement pending the court review next week. We are very impressed with your commitment and the stability you provide him. I stared at the phone like the device had just accused me personally. My wife made a small sound and nudged the top sheet toward me. He has some concerns, he is just anxious about the legal side. I felt her eyes on me, daring me to open my mouth now. If you are not ready, you need to say it to her, not just to me. My tongue might as well have been glued behind my teeth. On the line, the woman kept talking about timelines and signatures and home checks. She reminded us about the court date, reminded us about support services. She talked like this was a celebration, like we were all on the same team. Every now and then she used the phrase "your son" without even hesitating. That phrase sliced through the room and left everything vibrating. I could have interrupted at any point. That haunts me now. I could have said, I am not okay with this, please slow down. Instead, I let the call play out while staring at my printed surname. My silence filled the gaps where real objections should have gone. When she asked if we were still on board, I heard my wife say yes. After the call ended, there was a heavy quiet, no baby sounds, nothing. She locked the screen and folded her hands in front of her. They think you are nervous but committed, that is what they heard today. If you want out, you tell them yourself before the judge hears anything. Her eyes did not waver, and for once she left me zero middle ground. You want me to be the one who calls and backs out. Say the words, say you do not want him living here, say it clearly. Her voice stayed low, but every syllable hit with full force. The stack of papers sat between us like proof and accusation all at once. I felt my throat work, but nothing came out, nothing brave anyway. My fingers slid along the edge of the pen resting by the folder. Picking it up felt like crossing a line I could not uncross. Not picking it up meant owning the kind of man I really was. People talk tough about these situations online, like choices are obvious. Sitting there, I realized the hardest part is when both options make you hate yourself. Her laugh cut through the wall and I froze in bed. I had not heard that sound in days, maybe longer. It was quick and dry. GHT followed by a tiny squeal from him. I lay there alone staring at the ceiling while my wife laughed in another room. Nothing about that felt like a normal marriage. I got up and padded down the hall, stopping before the nursery. The door was half open, a soft glow spilling onto the carpet. She sat on the floor with her back against the crib, phone in hand. He rested against her chest while she grinned at the screen. Every few seconds she chuckled at something I was not invited to. "You two having fun in here?" My voice came out lighter than I intended, trying for casual. She flicked her gaze up once, then back to the phone. "We are checking in with everyone, just letting them know he is okay." She rubbed the baby's back and swiped again like I was background noise. I leaned on the doorframe and folded my arms just to do something. "Anyone important or just the entire planet?" That came out harsher than I planned, and I saw her jaw tense. "Family, people who care, people who did not bail when things got hard." She did not raise her tone, but each word landed sharp. I almost fired back, and then the baby shifted and whimpered. She rocked him gently and kissed the top of his head. Everything in me recoiled and softened at the exact same time. I muttered, "I am going back to bed," and turned down the hall. Behind me, her quiet voice floated out, "Thanks for your support." The next morning, she moved around the kitchen like a coworker on autopilot. She packed a small bag for him and checked her phone between motions. I opened the fridge and tried not to stare at her stiff shoulders. "Are you going somewhere with him today?" I already knew the answer, but I wanted to hear how she framed it. "We have a visit at the agency, they asked for an update." She tightened the strap on the bag and glanced at the clock. "They want to see how he is doing with us," their words. The word "us" twisted in my gut like I did not earn it. I leaned against the counter and felt my nails dig into my palm. "You told them I am on board with this whole setup." My voice came out flat, too controlled for how I felt. She zipped the bag and finally looked straight at me. "I told them we are working through it, that you are adjusting slowly." The way she stressed slowly made it sound like a generous lie. What does that even mean, adjusting slowly to being trapped? I heard myself and wanted to drag the sentence back into my mouth. Her eyes flashed and then went icy in a heartbeat. "You make it sound like someone locked you in a cage." She grabbed the car seat and walked past me without brushing my arm. The front door shut and the house went quiet again fast. I stood in the kitchen with my coffee untouched, heart pounding. Part of me wanted to chase her to the driveway and stop the car. Another part wanted to disappear for the day and let them handle everything. I chose the third option, the worst one. I hovered and did nothing. Hours later, I heard the garage open and the baby fussing again. I turned the TV off so fast the remote clacked against the table. She came in, balancing him on one hip, bag digging into her shoulder. "How did it go? Did they say anything about those forms?" My question sounded like a man checking his sentence, not his family. "They are thrilled," their exact word. "They think he is thriving here." She set the bag down and adjusted her grip on him. "They loved the photos, they loved hearing how involved you are." My brain glitched on that last part and everything narrowed. Involved, that was the story leaving our house apparently. Involved how? Scrolling in the other room while you do everything. I heard the bitterness and could not stop it. She let out a short breath that almost turned into a laugh. "I did not tell them that part, obviously. I am not sabotaging my own kid." The phrase "my own kid" hit harder than any insult. That night she finally knocked out on the futon in the nursery. I walked past the doorway and saw her slumped there, phone by her hand. The baby slept in the crib with one fist near his mouth. Her screen lit up with a new notification and then went dark again. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at that device. "Do not check it," that was my first clear thought. "You are already the villain here, do not add spying to the list." I lasted maybe 30 seconds before I slipped inside on quiet feet. I picked up the phone and my thumb hovered over the lock screen. Of course, she still used the same code, my birthday, which felt like a joke now. The home screen unlocked and messages filled the display instantly. I scrolled without meaning to, hand moving faster than my brain. At the top, a thread with her sister showed picture after picture of him. In one of them, I was in the background holding the baby awkwardly. She had captioned it, "Look at these two, already attached to each other." I remembered that moment as her shoving him into my arms for 5 minutes. In her story, it had tea earned into something warm and full of hope. Her sister had responded with crying emojis and a line about proud parents. Then came a message that made my stomach twist on itself. She wrote, "He is already the best dad, he just does not realize it yet." That sentence sat there glowing in my hand while my throat tightened. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room. Another part wanted to be the guy she described in that text. Instead, I kept scrolling deeper into conversations I had no right to read. Curiosity and shame wrestled inside me, neither side winning. There was a chat with her mother filled with long blocks of text. I skimmed the latest ones and felt heat climb up my neck. She told her she was staying in the nursery so I could rest. She wrote that I was overwhelmed and grieving and trying my best. None of that matched the man who flipped the monitor face down and slept. One message from her mom stung more than the rest. "Make sure you appreciate him, not many men would step up like this." I could almost hear the proud tone through the tiny words. She replied, "I know, he loves him already, even if he is scared." I had never hated the word loves more in my life. Then I found the thread that knocked the air out of me completely. A friend of hers had asked how I took the guardianship news. She answered with a single brutal line that pulsed on the screen. "He told me he is not the father and never will be." Seeing my own words quoted back like that hit different. My chest clenched and my fingers tightened around the phone too much. She had added another message under it that I almost missed. "I am staying for the baby right now, I do not know about us." She did not even call it a marriage in that sentence, just us. The distance inside that tiny word made my hands shake. The mattress creaked softly behind me, and I nearly dropped the device. I spun around and saw the baby twitch but stay asleep. My pulse hammered in my ears while I slipped the phone back beside her. I backed away from the futon like it might explode under my feet. In the doorway, I heard my own breathing louder than anything else. On my way out, she stirred and opened her eyes halfway. Her gaze flicked from my face to the phone and then to the crib. "Were you just in here for something?" I swallowed and nodded once, throat dry, mind scrambling for a story. "I wanted to help, but it looks like you already have everything covered." She studied me for a second that felt way too long. Then she turned her head toward the crib and exhaled slowly. "Go get some sleep, tomorrow will be busy with more calls and questions." Her voice was calm, but the edge underneath it stayed sharp. I walked back to our empty bed feeling like an intruder in my own house. Lying there, I could not stop replaying those lines on her screen. In her messages, I was some heroic partner, in real life I hid. People online beg for partners who support them through chaos and loss. My wife had gone ahead and invented one on her phone to stay afloat. The actual man in the next room scrolled strangers instead of feeding a baby. I wish I could say that night jolted me into action instantly. What it really did was split me down the middle even more. One half wanted to step up and match the version she bragged about. The other dug in harder, terrified that one bottle would turn into forever. By morning, that second half was already planning an escape disguised as compromise. She dropped the folder on the table so hard it rattled the remote. I flinched even though I had been waiting for it all day. "Court is tomorrow, they need your answer tonight." Her voice was steady, her hands were not, the tremor gave her away. In the next room, the baby monitor hummed low like a warning. I stayed on the opposite side of the table with my arms folded. The TV was off, our phones face down, no distractions allowed. This felt like an interview for the rest of my life. She opened the folder and turned the top form toward me. There it was again, my name printed next to the word that terrified me. I focused on the edge of the paper so I would not look higher. She watched my face and waited, no prompting, no helpful speech. The silence between us stretched until I felt it in my teeth. You are going to have to say something that is not maybe. Her fingers tapped once on the signature line and then went still. I drew in a slow breath and tried to sound rational, not cornered. I cannot promise what you want, I cannot pretend this is my child. She closed her eyes for a second like she was bracing for impact. When she opened them again, they were dry and very clear. So that is your final position, not a phase, not panic. Final sounded too heavy, like I was picking a planet to live on. I shifted in my seat and rubbed my palms on my jeans. I am willing to contribute, that part has not changed at all. I can cover his expenses, insurance, whatever he needs financially. I just cannot step into that father role, that is the line. She let out a breath that turned into an ugly half-laugh. You are describing a sponsor, not a parent, not a partner. Her knuckles whitened around the pen she had been holding all evening. Do you hear how detached that sounds while he sleeps in our house? I did hear it, I just did not know what else to offer. I tried to lean on logic because emotion was killing me in this room. He will have everything he needs with you and the court support. You are great with him, you already love him, that is obvious. If I stay out of the way, you can actually focus on him. It sounded noble in my head, it sounded like cowardice out loud. She pushed back from the table so suddenly the chair scraped hard. Stop acting like disappearing is some kind of gift to us. She paced once behind her chair, one hand pressed to her forehead. You want me to raise him here while you live 10 feet away? Her voice cracked on away, and she dug her nails into her palm. I followed her with my eyes and tried another angle fast. We could set things up so I am around but not central. I can help with errands, rides, bills, big decisions if needed. Just do not label me something I cannot live up to. My chest hammered while I wrapped selfishness in careful language again. She stopped moving and stared like she was seeing a stranger on my face. You keep talking about labels, I keep talking about an actual baby. Her arms folded tight across her chest, shoulders drawn in. He needs someone who will not walk away when it gets messy. You are designing a role with a built-in exit sign. In the nursery, the monitor gave a quiet crackle, then settled again. We both glanced toward it as if expecting him to march in. She dragged her chair back and sank into it slowly. I already told the court we were united on this placement. I told them you are committed, I used that exact word. My stomach clenched and I felt heat race up my neck. Why would you do that when you knew how I felt? My voice rose even though I tried to keep it level. You stood there and sold them a version of me that does not exist. It felt like she had signed a contract using my face. She did not flinch, she just watched me with this tired disbelief. I told them who you were before all of this scared you. You were the one who stayed late at the hospital with her. You were the one who called him family before he was born. I believed that version of you would come back once you calmed down. I tugged at my shirt collar like it was suddenly too tight around my throat. You built an entire legal plan around a guy in your imagination. My hand spread uselessly over the folder between us. The real man is right here telling you his limits clearly. Why is that not enough honesty for you? Because your limit slices him out like he is an accessory. Her voice dropped lower, calmer, more dangerous. You are trying to negotiate around the existence of a human being. He is not a mortgage payment you can help with from a distance. He is not a pet you can visit on weekends when it suits you. I winced because she was not wrong, and I hate that part. I grabbed the pen and spun it once between my fingers. If I sign this and then fail, that will destroy all of us. If I do not sign, you can still move forward without me. I thought I sounded logical, measured, almost protective. She leaned in, elbows on the table, eyes locked on mine. You keep pretending this is about protecting us, it is about protecting you. You do not trust yourself to stay, so you want an escape clause. You want me to do the hard thing, and you will wire money. That is not a partnership, that is a landlord arrangement. The word landlord stung more than I expected, maybe because it fit. I looked away first, down at the page with my name. What do you actually want from me? Say it straight. If you tell me you want me gone, I will go. That was the only piece of bravery I could find. She stared for a long moment, then shook her head slowly. I want you to mean it when you call this boy yours. I want you to show up at 3 a.m. with bed hair and patience. I want you to stop keeping one foot outside our front door. If you cannot do that, then yes, I want you gone. The air left my lungs in a rush I did not expect. I had been assuming bluff, not a clear answer like that. So you are choosing him over me, that is what this is. The words felt cheap even as they left my mouth. Framing it like a contest made me sound small and jealous. She laughed once, a raw sound, and wiped at her face quickly. There is no contest, there is a helpless infant and a grown man. One of you had no voice in how he got here. The other keeps writing speeches about how unfair it is. If you force me to rank that, then yes, I choose him. The monitor crackled again, and a thin cry floated into the room. We both turned our heads at the same time, instincts still synced.
Z push.
D her chair back and rose, but did not move yet. I waited for her to rush down the hall like always. Instead, she looked back at me and stayed planted. You know what, you handle this one. Her eyes did not waver, her hands dropped to her sides. Feed him, change him, hold him while he screams, whatever he needs. Treat tonight like a trial run for the life you keep dodging. My pulse thudded in my ears while the crying grew louder. I stood up slowly, every muscle heavy, like I was walking underwater. My feet carried me to the hallway almost on their own. The closer I got to the nursery, the sharper his cries became. My fingers brushed the doorframe and then stopped completely. I stood there frozen again, trapped between two rooms. Behind me she called out without coming closer. If you cannot walk in there, do not pretend money fixes that. Her voice reached me like a final warning before a drop. My hand tightened on the frame until my knuckles ached. I wish I could say I pushed through and went to him. I did not move. I told myself I might scare him, that I was too worked up. I told myself she could handle it better since he knew her voice. All those reasons stacked up into one big excuse with my name on it. The crying kept climbing until she finally strode past me without touching. She brushed my shoulder on the way by, and I felt her shaking. Not from fear this time, from anger held so tight it buzzed. She scooped him up and murmured something I could not make out. The door clicked nearly shut behind them, leaving a thin gap. I stayed in the hallway with my heartbeat crashing in my ears. After a while the crying settled into small hiccups and then quiet. I drifted back to the living room like a sleepwalker. The folder still lay open on the table, papers spread around it. The pen sat where I had dropped it, just out of reach. I stared at that tiny object like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Time dragged, or maybe I just sat there too long. Eventually she came back, eyes red, shoulders sagging, jaw set. She did not sit this time, she remained standing across from me. I am calling the lawyer in the morning and changing the plan. Her tone was calm enough that it made me nervous. You are not signing, I am not lying about that anymore. I will petition as his guardian alone and figure it out. You can contribute if you actually follow through, that is separate. Our marriage goes on the table with everything else tomorrow. She looked down at her ring like it belonged to another story. My mouth opened but no words came, just a weak breath. Are you talking about separation, or are you jumping straight to divorce? The word tasted strange, too big, too final, too soon. She shrugged one shoulder though her eyes were wet again. I am talking about not raising a child with someone half in the doorway. The worst part was I could not argue with that. I had given her weeks of evidence that she was right. Do you still love me at all, or is that gone too? The question sounded pathetic even to my own ears. She winced like the word love physically hurt her now. I care about you, I will probably always care, that is the problem. If I did not, this decision would be easy, clean and done. But caring about you cannot outweigh caring about a baby who never chose this. I will not let your fear shape his whole life. If that means losing you, I will grieve you later. She slid the ring off and placed it gently on the folder. The metal made a soft click that echoed way too loud inside me. You can stay on the couch tonight, or you can leave, your choice. Tomorrow after court we talk about logistics, not feelings. Her eyes met mine once more, then she turned toward the hallway. I almost followed, almost grabbed her arm, almost begged out loud. Instead I sank onto the sofa with my hands over my face. My phone lay where I had dropped it earlier, screen dark. I picked it up and opened the app I always mocked in my head. If I could not say it to her, I would say it to strangers. That is how I ended up here, typing into this void. My wife sleeps down the hall with a baby she is ready to protect. Our ring sits on a stack of forms I still have not touched. Tomorrow a judge will hear about a child who lost one parent already. I am sitting here choosing whether he officially loses me too.